Hello, everyone. In celebration of International Women's Day and P3R's amazing partnership with Magee Women's Institute and Foundation, we are hosting a panel discussion this morning focusing on women's health and wellness and fitness. My name is Kathleen Knockhazel. I'm the Director of Athletic Training for UPMC Sports Medicine, and I'm delighted to be your moderator for this morning's discussion. We have with us today 4 amazing women who balance a busy medical practice, family, and find time to prioritize their health and wellness. Julie Dennison is a clinical nutrition coordinator and registered dietitian with UPMC Magee Women's Hospital. She's a runner and a high school cross-country coach. Dr. Dennison is passionate about sports nutrition, specifically in women and girls. Dr. Noelle Guthrie is an orthopedic surgeon at the Bone and Joint Center at UPMC Magee Women's Hospital. She was a Division I women's lacrosse player at Brown University, a soccer, basketball, and lacrosse player in high school, and a former yoga instructor. I don't know how you found time for all of that. She shares that athletics have always been an integral part of her life, and she loves to help young women share that passion. Coralie Toll is a fellow for the Female Pelvic Medicine and Reconstructive Surgery at UPMC Magee Women's Center for Bladder and Pelvic Health. Dr. Toll will be participating in the 2023 Team Magee Pittsburgh Marathon Relay. And mental health professional Erica Strasser is a professor at the University of Pittsburgh. Welcome, ladies. We received several questions from our P3R participants for today's discussion, so let's get started. Dr. Guthrie, do specific shoes or specialized inserts minimize long-term impact of distance running on the knees and hip?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question because a lot of times you just go out and buy a tennis shoe that you think looks good or that you like more so. But I think the most important thing for your hips and knees is just finding a shoe that's really gives you a lot of support, a lot of cushion. And like we were talking about before, I think everyone has different biomechanics when they run. So even some running stores you can go to, they can watch you run and then suggest a type of shoe like Brooks or Nikes or something that might be beneficial for your running style. So I think for long distance runners, obviously that's a really good thing to do. And I do know there's like a max number of miles that you should put on your tennis shoes before you get new ones. I'm not like a huge long distance runner, so I don't know what that number is, but I'm sure someone could find that number. But I think those are the best suggestions. I would say just keep up to date with your shoes. Make sure you're getting new ones every so often so you're not running out your support and cushion. And then have someone look at your biomechanics. You might need a different type of shoe than you think you need. There's a lot of different types of insoles too. I know that was part of the question. And I think that comes with seeing what your biomechanics are like because a lot of people have really high arches or low arches. So arch supports might benefit you. If you have plantar fasciitis, I know there's little soles that you can get that are really helpful too that are just over the counter. But those would be my recommendations. I don't know if anyone has any other.
Yeah. The only thing to add to that is it's usually like 300 to 400 miles per your shoe. Yeah. And it kind of just depends on what your form is like. Like I definitely am on the lower end, but some people with really, really good form might be on the higher end.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a cross-country runner. So
Yep.
Cool.
Well, keeping up with Dr. Dennison, we had a lot of questions about collagen and adding collagen to your drink in the morning. I know I'm an advocate putting it in my coffee every morning. So any suggestions or recommendations, or does it truly help?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's so many supplements out there that say that they're going to help out with a lot of different things. The important thing with all supplements is to remember that they aren't regulated by the Food and Drug Administration the same way as like foods and medicines are. So a lot of the claims on there, they don't necessarily have to be, they aren't backed by anything. So for any supplements, I would recommend that they are third-party tested. There's NSF is really good for sports for third-party testing. As for collagen, there is some research that it can help, especially with bone and joints, but there there's also some research that says it doesn't. So it's more than likely not going to hurt anything, but it also might not help. So definitely look into what you're getting. Make sure it has third-party testing on it if you are going to take it, because sometimes those supplements are a lot of money. So you don't want to be spending a lot of money on something that might not have any benefits. But more than likely, it's not going to hurt anything.
Well, that's good. I'll continue then. Dr. Toll, how does running on your period impact your body? Is it recommended to continue to run during that time, or should we just sit it out?
So any type of movement during your period can actually be helpful. I think for anybody who experiences periods, you can know that it may not be your favorite time of the month. And so it's important to also listen to your body and what you feel up for. But if you feel willing to try, any type of movement, including running, can definitely be recommended. It can lessen the pain that you experience and can make those symptoms overall better. The thing I find also kind of interesting about this question is I think it's important for all of us to keep in mind how our periods affect our month. And this can be something that maybe you've never thought to yourself, wow, I'm really not able to do most of my usual activities during my period because my pain or my side effects or my symptoms are so bad that they prevent me from doing my usual runs, doing my usual activities. If that's the case, that's really a time to be reaching out to a women's health provider to kind of discuss those symptoms. Not saying that you necessarily need to medicate your period, but those can be times where it's possibly impacting your life too much. But if it's kind of usual cramps, kind of usual amount of bleeding, which again, I don't really like to put a normal on any of that because everyone's body and cycle is different. But if you feel up for it, you're absolutely not going to hurt anything. You might even kind of help and you may tolerate some of those symptoms better. But also kind of keep in mind that our menstrual cycles are a little bit like a vital sign of other things, like our blood pressure and other things. And if it's going in a way that is helpful and not impacting our life much, then that's something that we can keep in mind. But if you notice any changes or that it's starting to affect your life more, it may be a time. And if it's affecting your runs, then it might be a time to kind of reach out to a professional to see if there's any changes that need to be made.
Very good. Thank you for that. Dr. Dennison, runners have always prepared for their big day with the pre-race pasta meal, which is such a tradition. Is this still the best practice?
So it kind of depends. It's just like what I mentioned earlier with the collagen. It's not going to hurt anything, but it depends on the distance that you're running. So if you're running like 5K, 10K, you probably don't need that big of a meal before the night before. But if you're running something like a marathon or half marathon, having a high carbohydrate meal the night before and honestly days before is going to be important. Pasta meals, I mean, as you guys mentioned earlier, I coach cross country and they have pasta parties before their meet. And honestly, I think that team bonding is so important regardless of whether the meal is actually going to help them. The team bonding will more than likely help them. But carbohydrates are important. I think it's important also to practice what you're eating during your long runs. So if you eat pasta during the night before your long run and you run great, then that's something you should continue to do. But if you eat something like potatoes or rice or any carbohydrate rich meal, I think that's also a good choice. So it's like a lot of things, it's not going to hurt, it's individualized, but if it's for a shorter race, it might not be super beneficial, but it's not going to hurt anything. But yeah, for those longer races, marathon, half marathon, you're going to want to start carb loading a few days before, like 3 to 5 days before. And then the day before, you want to really, really load up on your carbohydrates. So
can I jump in first?
Of course.
I think it's also really important to not try anything new
Right.
to eat the night before a marathon or a half marathon or any type of race at all. And I know specifically hydration is really important. So that pasta meal is great as long as it comes with extra hydration, mostly water and not anything else. The electrolytes are good though.
For sure.
You can hold the anything else until after you've competed. and
Right, exactly.
Very good. Continuing on, Erica, with so many competing demands on our time now, work, family, school, can you please share some tips on how we can deal with all of this?
I think it's important to maintain balance in our lives. It's really important as we have these busy lives and these demands to prioritize. What does it mean? What gives you the most purpose out of that day? If it's too much to wake up at 5 and then go to work and then do the kids and then have a social life, something needs to be eliminated. Something needs to come off the plate. And then it's just a matter of what works well in your life. If it's not working well in your life, then we're likely to build resentments and we're likely to discontinue what it is that we're doing or not do it to our most effective ability. So I think balance is the key for most individuals, especially us ladies with all the demands.
That's true. Dr. Toll, what are the best exercises or medical interventions to help strengthen your pelvic floor if you experience incontinence during long training runs?
Yeah, so if you're experiencing incontinence during long training runs, that's not overall uncommon. It can especially be more common after childbirth of any variety. The first thing is probably to reach out to somebody who can support you in the proper way if you're experiencing those symptoms, and to kind of assess how much it's bothering you. Because when we talk about interventions for these types of things, it's going to come down to how much does it bother you, and what do you kind of want to do about it in that regard. So there are pelvic floor strengthening exercises. I do always talk with our patients about how we don't really want someone to be taking on a really intense pelvic floor regimen without proper guidance, because you can actually send your pelvic floor muscles into spasm. You can overdo it in the wrong way and create more of a problem than actually helping what you're wanting to do. So pelvic floor physical therapists are going to be the mainstay of kind of a non-invasive and organized and instructed way to start strengthening your pelvic floor, so that they can teach you the tools, help you understand where those muscles are, what it feels like when they're contracting, relaxing, and even a few sessions, and it's one-on-one, usually with a female therapist in a private room for 45 minutes to an hour, to kind of go through some exercises that may or may not include internal work to help you understand how to strengthen that pelvic floor. And that's something that, especially if it's in isolated times or certain activities like running, that can be a great time to kind of say, is there something that may be weaker that I could strengthen so that I don't notice it as much when I'm kind of pushing my body to the limit in this isolated instance. Other times, though, depending on the degree of incontinence that someone may be experiencing, strengthening alone may not be able to totally eliminate any leakage. And so that can be times where talking with someone like a pelvic health doctor or urogynecologist can help understand some other tools and things that we can do. Some things are incontinence pessaries. This is like a silicone little disc that goes in the vagina. It has a little support underneath the urethra, so that when you're doing that high impact exercise or running, that you don't experience leakage, and then you can kind of take it out like a tampon or a menstrual cup, and it's only there for when you need it. But often these things can work together, and pelvic floor physical therapy can be a really great first step. There are some exercises that we kind of can think of as a little bit more pelvic floor friendly. Things like Pilates and yoga can be ways that you can kind of in a gentle way strengthen the core, the low back, and the pelvis to help them be ready for those kind of exercises. But if you're going to do specific pelvic floor work, I would do it with the help of